I'm Sabrina Ramanov here on my next podcast with Jacqueline Jayne. She's an expert in cybersecurity. I'm really excited for her to share her knowledge and expertise today. Jacqueline Jayne, tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Sabrina. It is so good to be here. I've enjoyed watching you over the last 6-7 months. So part of the reason I'm here is to share information with your followers, with your community in relation to staying safe online. So I've spent the last 20 odd years as a conduit between people and technology, doing my very best to educate IT people about how to talk to the humans and the humans about how to talk to IT. Whilst we are all humans, there are some skills, knowledge and experience that both sides lack, and that causes so much friction. So I've been in that world for a long time. The last 7 years, looking at the human element of cybersecurity. How do we bring down that risk? And that comes to the usual security awareness training and simulated social engineering and phishing, etc., and how to engage that end user in organizations like you and me to not click on those links. But one of my big passion areas is focused on looking after individuals of all ages, because I'm finding, and I'd love your thoughts on this too, people don't know how to spot these red flags and what to do and how to actually navigate as a digital citizen and being safe. They just lack the knowledge. And it should be natural, like crossing the road, putting sunscreen on. These things are basic cyber skills, but they're not basic. People haven't got that cyber hygiene.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of intimidation still when you mention concepts like cybersecurity. For those of you who are not familiar with it or maybe don't have a technical background, it can sound like a really scary thing. And so how would you advise everybody listening to think about cybersecurity in this day and age, especially as it relates to AI? And how do you think about it, like with respect to your everyday life, like your families, your kids, if you have them? How can we kind of reorient our societal perception of cybersecurity so that we can embrace it and learn some of these skills you mentioned that should be foundational?
Absolutely. Really good questions. I think because of the nature of the digital world that we're in, the hyperconnectivity that we find ourselves, and I'll get to AI because that's a big part of the fear factor at the moment, and it doesn't need to be. However, when we look at technology and how fast it has moved, if I think back to my high school days when computing as a subject just came in as I was leaving, for me, it's been a part of my world. And I'm one of those individuals who, I suppose, that helper, that I'm the one who reads the instruction manual. I'm the, what is this all about? That's just my curiosity. And as a result, I help others doing that. But what I have found, most people have seen cybersecurity and technology really as IT's problem or someone else's problem or the maker of my device's problem or the software promoter's problem or the social media platform's problem. And whilst there is a responsibility there, I love analogies. So the analogy I'll bring in for this one is the roads and road safety. We're all responsible for our cars, our vehicles, depending on where you are, and looking after that. But someone made that. Someone actually put that car together. So they had a responsibility. And then the governments around us have a responsibility to keep the roads in a certain order so that we can drive on them. And then there's law and order and don't speed. And there's those logical things that we have a responsibility for while we're driving around. And it's the same with cyber. However, there's a misconception that it's everyone else's responsibility than the end user. And I don't think it's the end user's fault. I do believe there's been too much focus on technology to fix everything for us. And unfortunately, cyber criminals, scammers, whatever you would like to call them, they're one in the same. They target our humanity, the basic fear factors or curiosity, or we hear a message and our body will do a physical response to that. You know, you will be arrested tomorrow if you don't do this and give me this information. It's a scary thing. And now we're finding children being handed very powerful devices with no protection for them, no training at all, where I do believe it's unintentional. It's a trust issue that people don't want to know, or they don't know what they don't know, what's actually happening on the internet and how terrifying it can actually be. So unless you're aware of that, you're not going to put the things in place to make sure that your kids are safe, your seniors are safe, you're safe online, your privacy settings are up to date, you understand passwords. There's not a lot that people actually need to do to have basic cyber hygiene. You have to go backwards and take out all assumed knowledge and explain why they need to do it. So there's a massive gap. That's what I've found, that big gap. So how do you bring people on board and get them to understand that it's their responsibility? I use my analogies. And that works. People think, oh, yeah, it's my job to make sure that there's gas, petrol, whatever you want to call it, diesel in the car, make sure the tires are okay, make sure it gets serviced. I don't do the servicing, but I go to a professional who does. So it's, if you have that mindset when it comes to security and cyber, the other analogy I love, which really rings home to people, is at your home for security. So I often say to people, how many locks on your doors, and do you have an alarm? Have you got a guard dog? Have you got a fence outside? Is it remote control? Have you got cameras? And I link those back to the basic cyber hygiene elements. It takes longer to get inside, but you do it for a reason. So your home is protected.
And to put everything in perspective, like what percentage ballpark of cybersecurity incidents or hacks, for lack of a better word, are actually due to human error rather than an IT or technical issue?
That's one of my bugbears in the world. We're up to about 85, 95% of all cyber incidents are because of human error.
My gosh, I would have guessed 60, 70%. You're saying over 90% potentially?
Yes. If you have a look at report, in every industry, there's a lot of reports that happen every year. You know, the 2024 IBM report, every company will have reports out for cyber. And since I was really focused as probably 2017, human error at that time was around 70%. And it has just increased all the time. If you look at the 2024 reports, we see that there's anywhere between, it could be 80 in some reports through to 95 in others. When you look into it though, sometimes they'll break things out. So they might say ransomware and not have it under the human error. But if you understand what ransomware is, which is, for those that don't know, software that a cyber criminal finds to get onto your system, shuts it down and says, unless you pay me money, you can't access your data. In simple terms, that's what ransomware is. And if you understand how does ransomware work, usually a human had to do something to enable that software to be on the computer. So it's human error. So when you look at all the elements of how cyber incidents occur, cyber criminals target the human because we are fallible. We have basic human responses to things. We want to help. So if someone rings and says, hey, you know, can we talk to your head of IT? People might say, yeah, sure, I'll put you through. Or can I confirm their name, please?
I know multiple friends and even family members who've fallen, victim to cybercrime, whether a recruiting scam or a phone call saying we have someone and you need to pay money. And even now, like as I'm growing my audience on TikTok, especially on Instagram, there are dozens of people cloning my accounts and people are falling for it. Like I will see comments where it's like, Sabrina claims she's just giving free AI education, but then she messaged me to join a Telegram group and buy some Forex. And I was like, that was not me. And I feel terrible because people are actually losing money and who knows what other information that they're giving to these people. Taking that real example, all the people on TikTok messaging my followers saying, hey, I'm the real Sabrina on Telegram. Message me here. Like, what are some practical tips that you could give audience members so they don't fall victim to that kind of cybercrime?
That's a really good question and something I work on a lot. For anything that you see, any incoming communication, whether it be via social media or email, phone, text message, if it's not been requested, you must stop and take a breath and think, okay, who's sending me this? And let's say it is social media. Let's use that example on TikTok, because I don't know about you, but sometimes when you follow someone, like a very well-known celebrity or person jumps onto TikTok and opens their account, and of course they get millions of people on day one, and you follow them, the amount of times they will follow me back the very next day. No, they're not. I know they're not. But so many people believe it's them. Like, oh my God, I just followed them yesterday. They must be following me today. So it's taking that breath and saying, okay, well, let me have a look at this account. And I would, if I know that I'm following you already, then I can go into the official account and check that out. It's a quick process, but again, it's like that. I haven't got time. Like it says your name, so it must be you.
And there's also fear of missing out because I've heard from people who have fallen victim to this that they were promised exclusive business opportunities and mentorship from me if they join Telegram and send money, etc. And even though I talked to them afterwards, even though it feels sketchy, they're like alarm bells ringing, but it's like, oh, but this is like an exclusive business opportunity and mentorship. And some of these fake accounts have 10,000 followers. so it doesn't even look like a brand new account anymore. Yeah, I just find it
Anyway,
like really sad, and it's an ongoing problem. It's only getting worse. Any additional advice for folks out there?
the advice, look, that's a hard one because when people want a quick fix, Sabrina, they want a install this button and it will flash green if it's okay and red if it's a scam. Unfortunately, that doesn't exist. It's up to us to understand that when we see an email that says open this now or this will happen, urgency, there's the common threads of things within emails, change your password, click here, it looks official. The grammar these days in these scams, there's no spelling errors, and people blame AI today. It's actually not. It's been around for a very long time. I love to talk about our original AI friend, Clippy. He's been around for a very long time, underlining words and Grammarly, so many things that are actually AI we've been using. Before I answer that question about the basic things, I want to come back to what you asked about their deepfake AIs, people ringing to claim they are someone and they're not and they sound like that person. Because for that particular scam, and it's a very easy scam to use, I'm sure that you'll be able to actually recreate this for people if you probably already haven't. I haven't seen all of your stuff because it's a lot of content and it's unbelievably like brain exploding. I've learned a lot from you. When a call comes through to usually a parent or an elderly grandparent saying, hi, grandma, or hi, mum, I've been kidnapped, or, I'm being held against my will, and unless you pay money, then I'm, going to be hurt. And it sounds exactly like your child, your grandson, granddaughter. It is so easy to clone someone's voice just from this podcast. So easy. You don't need a lot of audio from a person to be able to recreate that and then make it sound real. So the one thing that I say to people is you have a code word. You have something in your family that you will have spoken about, just like stranger danger. You don't get into cars with strange people. You've got to think about if something like that did happen, how would we know it was actually you? And have something that you can say, what's the code word, what's the number, whatever it is. And if you don't hear it, the biggest challenge is you've got to then hang up. But that's hard when it sounds like your family member or your loved one. So because of that human element, that's why it's so challenging. So a checklist for something like back to your social media, for people who are seeing things they think are real, is to do some research, to say, okay, let me have a look. I'm following Sabrina over here, so let me have a look at that. This account looks different, and it can be quite hard to see the difference, especially because people don't think, unless you're a content creator, you don't realize you can download people's content and recreate it and make it look like yours. That's the challenge. So yes, there's a verification process that you can go through, but that doesn't stop people either. If people would just do the right thing, the world will be a better place, but that's not the world we live in. So it's an ongoing thing, building that muscle of, hold on a minute, I don't think this is right, and looking into it a little bit more and coming to the person directly. I know you're very active in making sure you're reading comments and engaging with your community and even your newsletter group to actually respond to that and say, hey, is this you on TikTok, whatever that might be. But even you can't stop it all. And TikTok don't know how to, or I'm not really sure what the terminology
I
is.
report the accounts, but nothing happens. And so I'm not sure why they don't take a stronger stance against that kind of thing.
I don't know. I mean, at the moment, there's so many social media organisations. I know here in Australia, our government's going hard on them to do something about the issues of the content that they just don't seem to care about. But if we upload something that might have a swear word in the beginning, we'll be banned. It's like, what? So, yeah.
But that's also AI for you.
Exactly. But AI has brought a whole new wealth of sophistication to cyber criminals and scammers alike. Used to be you could see really easily when something was deepfake or AI created. I have a knack to be able to spot things. I've done a whole lot of the which one's real, which one's fake, getting harder and harder to pick them.
And is there hope for the future? Is there AI research being conducted to help spot deepfakes for us automatically? Or have you even read about ways to have a signature applied to different content to mark its authenticity?
I think there's opportunities in every new form of technology that comes out. There's opportunities there's the good, the bad, the ugly, and the nefarious in everything. So whilst cyber criminals might be using AI for their part, we can also use AI to spot those. I mean, I think of things like watermarks, or even on LinkedIn at the moment, I'm seeing so much content that clearly is being copy and pasted. And there must be some way of proving that and saying the percentage is, copy paste. However, at the same time, we're seeing that AI itself can't pick when things are original or if they've been made up. So it's a challenge. What I'm seeing for the people on the good side of AI is looking at ways to look at, and I suppose that like a facial recognition type situation, because there are some little nuances if you know what you're looking for, like with hands. If there's no hands anywhere and people are very deadpan, I mean, I move around, people tend to move around, but even the stuff I've seen with you when you can change that language, you can morph into another person. It's phenomenal about what it can do.
Yeah, the real-time deepfake, I did a TikTok live on that and it was pretty crazy.
If you're someone who doesn't understand what AI can do, because if it's not your job, I don't know about you, but I don't know what the latest medical equipment that's coming out in the next, I have no idea because I'm not in that industry. I'll only come across it when I may need it, or whether someone I know is needing it. Otherwise, I'm never going to find out. And unfortunately, the world of technology and cybersecurity and making that opportunity to be safe online isn't where it needs to be based on the way we use the technology. So AI has moved so fast. We're at that point of we can't, like the gate's open, the whole horse is bolted. It's more about saying, we can't do anything about that, but what can we do? And it's just that repetitive message to people. Here's what you need to be aware of. Get yourself that password manager. They're really important. There's no 100% secure thing for anything in the world unless you get off internet completely. The only way is to get off the internet. And we're not doing that. It's not going to happen. So if you want to stay on it, you need to do these basic elements of cyber hygiene.
I like how you go back to human responsibility and accountability at the end of the day. So even if there is promising research to use technology to combat against nefarious uses of technology, at the end of the day, it still goes back to a person, an individual with responsibilities to think about cybersecurity in their daily life. In terms of how you educate people, is there a difference in what you teach for consumers versus people working in companies?
Interesting you asked that question because it's the same thing. There are some nuances. So if you're employed in an organization that has access to medical records, then there's an element of why we need to protect that in a certain way and something a little bit unique and different. The basic understanding of what to look out for and how to be aware and how to avoid situations is the same everywhere. Everything boils down to what's in it for me and why should I care about it for myself. So once you break down that, it's quite easy then to have a conversation with people and help them go through the process of what they need to do. And then it's just building on the knowledge. When you're looking at an organization, it's about asking them who they think is responsible for cyber. It's like, well, I don't clean the kitchen. That's someone else's job. Same with cyber. I don't need to worry about that. That's someone else's job. It's the same with cybersecurity and protecting data and IP and all of that stuff in a work environment. But once again, if you're in sales, finance, marketing, communication, the C-suite, you have your focus area and what's important to you. Not that you don't care about everything else, but you have a focus area. So you have to let everyone in on what's happening in the world, what's going on, what are cyber criminals wanting and why. So it's a story, back to storytelling to connect with humans. When you do that, then they understand that it's not just about protecting everything at work. This flows through everything you do in your whole life. And it makes a massive difference when people realize that it's an aha moment. The penny drops and they think, oh, okay, it's not as bad as I thought. It's just going to take my time and focus and a choice.
I know that enterprises invest a lot of money in security training, compliance. We all have to take those like quarterly courses. And if you accidentally click the phishing email too many times, then you have to take another course. Why is it that a lot of that content doesn't stick?
The basic or the easy answer is if you don't understand why you're doing something, how it's important, how it links in, if you just tell people to do things, the first thing that we will do is, well, no, I'm not doing that. I've got other things to do. If you take the time to explain and approach it as that change management, because it is a change, this is a massive change. So it's changing behavior. It's people just accepting every email that comes in is fine. It's the saying in cybersecurity. Some people say it's trust but verify. I believe it's trust and verify. You can't trust anymore. Even if it looks like it's coming from you, it's Okay, let me have a real good look at it.
Because of AI, because it's so easy to have like high quality replication and it's hard to detect otherwise?
This has been happening for many years. I think AI has pushed it forward in a manner that I suppose that exponential curve has sort of occurred, like it's been going up all the time, but this has just gone whoosh and taken it at another level. So in the world of cyber, AI is definitely used to combat that. So AI can be utilized to look at things, query things and think, hold on a minute, there's something going on here, red flag, and maybe quarantine or contain certain things. But AI can't get on a phone call. So if you pick up your phone at work or at home and it's a scammer and they sound professional, some of them actually believe they are professional. They don't understand they're a scammer because they're in a telemarketing group in a proper organization somewhere. So they honestly don't believe they're doing anything wrong. But AI can't get between that call and say, hold on, that phone number's coming from somewhere. We're not there yet, and that's one of the biggest things we have. Phishing still remains, malicious email, that's what phishing is, still remains the biggest issue when it comes to cyber incidents. So that's where that human error comes into play. So there's a lot of talk of, well, how do we quarantine everything? How do we protect ourselves from all the emails? It's really challenging. I get a lot of emails. I'm sure you do too. There's many that don't get open. I always check the junk folder. There's a lot of legitimate emails in the junk folder as well as the spammy ones. And then there are the ones absolutely trying to get you to click on something you shouldn't. It's clear. The ones that we fall for are the ones that look real. They're, just an email, open this to find that information. We're tired, we're overwhelmed with notifications and so many things we do, and we click. It's the click. It's like, oh, what do I do then? And in organizations, if you haven't got that psychological safety around reporting, people are terrified to report that they might have clicked on something. And an organization, if you're watching this and you're running a program where you are, people need to know they're safe to let IT know straight away they clicked and they're not going to be in trouble for it. Because it's not a matter of, you should have known better. The best of us get caught with these things. I've been scammed. It happens. When I reflect on it, so I just didn't do one or two things that I normally would do. And you get scammed. So for organizations, back to your question, the most important thing is to connect with the human of why we're doing this, why it's important to them. Once you get that engagement, that buy-in on a human level, really anything is possible and they will enjoy that process and not worry about, there's some more things I need to learn. Cyber changes daily. AI has added more to that complexity. So there's not like work health safety where there's not many new spills that happen at work. It's the same old spills. We're getting that refresher of how to pick up a box or how to report a near miss or how to keep our environment clean and tidy. There's no new things there. But with cyber, it's every day. So unfortunately, you do need more education to understand what's going on in that space. But if you can make it more relevant to people and smaller chunks, because that's the way we learn better, like the TikTok form. If you think about social media and have that type of all the different formats for your people, different world. People pay attention.
And for those listening who don't have a lot of background in cybersecurity, what are some of the scariest AI-enabled scams you're seeing today that are targeting consumers, just everyday people listening to podcasts like this?
For the everyday person, there's a lot of advertisements that are coming up on social media for things. As you've pointed out with what's happening with just your profile on TikTok and how many people are cloning you and pretending to be you. Think about all of the content creators that are making a difference. It's happening to them as well. That's a massive problem because people don't have the information to think, hold on, I better check. So it's not so much that we're seeing an addition of people calling with the phone calls of someone's been kidnapped. It is happening, but it's not as prevalent yet. It's increasing, so it will eventually get there, but they need quite a bit of time and focus to make those things happen. When something takes more time for a cyber criminal to actually do, and they can do something really quick and automated, they're going to go for the automation. They're going to go for the easiest way out because they're human as well. So the worst things are the emails. Be really cautious of the emails. Social media with advertisements that pop up using celebrities. That's a big thing right now where they're taking, because there's so much content available, it's worth their while to bring things together, create AI of a celebrity endorsing something, and they're not but it looks real. So people engage and think they're, give them a great opportunity to invest with a celebrity's product. Big problem there. The other element that I'm seeing is information, the disinformation, the misinformation that is out there that looks so real. And that is that critical thinking element. And critical thinking isn't natural again, that curiosity to find out and ask and get 2, 3, 4 sources. What are the sources? Where is that coming from? So it's a big issue that we're being attacked by all areas, not so much because of AI. AI has made it easier to come up with new things.
Mhm.
There's a playbook cyber criminals use, just like we have a recipe book that we might use for things, or the playbooks for sport. Cyber criminals will have a look at a particular scam and think, how can we maximize this? They have meetings. They sit down and talk about what can we do to make this scam better, to get
Mhm.
more people in. That could be something as simple as, let's get better quality logos. Let's do this. Let's make it look more real. That's one part. We're way past that now. Let's embed a video and make it look, so the smaller the video where you can't quite see everything, but it looks a little bit more authentic. So it's adding those layers of deception to the human. It's very challenging. The other side of it, which is I'm seeing too much of it at the moment, is how it's affecting our kids, because they've not taught these things. Usually critical thinking comes with age. When you're a kid on social media, I'm talking teenage up to even the 20s, the early 20s, they're being scammed left, right and center. They're being caught out with AI, the chatbots. There's been awful outcomes, negative outcomes for our kids. Parents are making the same mistakes their kids are. So whilst people like to blame the parents, they don't know what they don't know. And whilst the information is out there, it's not easy to understand it because there's too much assumed knowledge. People don't know stuff.
Are there any resources today could help families, in particular parents, be able to educate themselves first and then protect their families? I personally haven't seen a lot of that out there. Usually a lot of the cybersecurity training I see is focused on companies, enterprise, protecting that intellectual property, protecting the data, etc. But what about everybody else, especially because the skills you learn for your own protection, for your family's protection, it sounds like it can be applied, translated into company context. So are there any resources for parents, for families out there?
Yeah. Every company, every country in the world has a governing body that will have a lot of information for staying safe online, for your family, for your kids. They don't promote it because they're not an organization outside of government. It's an interesting phenomenon that I see. Here in Australia, we have the eSafety Commission, so esafety.gov.au, which anyone in the world can look at. I'm developing a whole lot of resources for each country so people can actually go and find out more. The challenge I'm hearing back from those people is, but what do I do to learn more? Like, this is information for me, but I need to understand the basic levels of things, and it's not there. And again, I think it comes back to this assumed knowledge. If you use too much jargon, technical terms, and don't make it human, I think I enjoy what I do so much because I can connect to the human and have that conversation whilst educating, even with a bit of humor. And yes, there's some nasty topics, especially for parents to have to listen to about what they need to be aware of, but they're so grateful that they can find that out. And then you share more resources. Common Sense Media is a really fantastic resource online. I get a lot of parents asking, well, my kid wants to play Minecraft. What do I do? What is Minecraft? Whilst my brain says, well, just go research it. That's not how everybody thinks. So Common Sense Media is a place where you could go and find out what's happening with all the apps, what privacy information they actually do take, and all these games and how old you should be to play, what they're about. Can you play offline, online? Like, information for parents. They're overwhelmed. They are completely overwhelmed. And kids, the focus for their education is more about the cyberbullying and those type of elements. They need to know about phishing, malicious email, smishing, the malicious SMS. It's the ishing family. It's hilarious. And vishing for voice versions of phishing, very hard to say early in the morning. They need to know these things too. So one of the reasons it's not part of our daily routine is it's not taught at schools like math is taught.
I don't think I had a single class on cybersecurity or online etiquette or anything you need to know about being online.
And I'm a strong believer that, like maths or sex ed, it's age appropriate. It's should start from a very young age. And as you move through the world of technology and become more involved, you're learning how to be a good digital citizen. Not, includes things like etiquette and how to do things right and how to use critical thinking, but also how to deal with these things we're dealing with from scammers and cyber criminals, so that when they leave school, they go into university, it continues, because then they need to learn more about why protecting stuff in university. And then when they go to work, guess what? Yeah, what do I need to know about cyber at work? Because it's already become part of their world. And again, I think we'll get there. I think we're 2 or 3 generations away from that, so that everyone
Really?
knows
Wow.
safety, it will be embedded. Because there's too many people doing too many things rather than a curriculum that says, well, we need to teach about technology and then how to use it properly. And we, just like we teach kids to cross the road, you hold my hand. You don't just put them on a motorbike and say, off you go. They start first on the bike with no wheels, your little legs are going, and then they get the wheels, and then it's a progress. And they learn about these things. So by the time they learn to drive, they understand road safety before they get in the car. It's like giving the keys to the kid who's never been outside at all and said, off you go. The world's a different place now. There are some awful people online. And if parents are aware and they know things they can do to help, they want to do the right thing, but they also need to learn as well. So that's a double-edged sword.
It seems like there's a massive opportunity for companies like small startups or even small businesses to tackle this problem. So I'm curious why there aren't more. Like, certainly cybersecurity for companies is a massive space, massive funding, only growing in terms of need and urgency. But for the individual consumer, educating families, educating communities, it seems like there's a massive financial opportunity to be the one to provide that education and long-term framework. And so are there any startups today doing something like that? Are you going to do something like that?
Yes, part of my mission now, I've been doing it a lot over the last 5 years. I've just done episode 2 of my Scam News Desk on YouTube. And I'm talking about some basic scams that I come across and people share with me over the week. And then I talk about them. I say, here's what they are, here's what they do, here's what to be aware of. And it's a repetitive thing. People then start to, I know, here's a scam. In the ideal world, I would love to be inundated with people sending me, I found this, I think it's a scam. Because then you've educated them to be able to find them for themselves. And when you can confirm, yes, that's a scam. So my hope is that my passion area of engaging people and building a community like you've done with AI, for people, that curiosity of, wow, yes, I need to learn more, is for them to understand that they've got that responsibility as well in cyber, and this affects everyone. And it's not as awful and daunting and challenging as people may think. It actually can be quite fun to learn all these things. So that's the plan, is to educate. The challenge is to talk to the kids, teenagers, the young adults, the parents, those that do work, don't work, students, lecturers, academics, doctors. Everybody has their own thoughts about this. But at the end of the day, they are humans. So to address those people, I think it will take a little bit of time, but I'm hopeful that the more I put out there and the more I can talk to people like yourself and talk to your communities, is once they realize it's not as bad as they think, like with AI, my hope is to, like you're doing with AI, is to educate a million people and keep them safe online.
I love that mission.
Yes, there's basic things people need to do. It's not that hard. I've got so much that I want to get out there. So it's checklists, it's guides, it's things for free. A lot of the stuff I already have. It's more about as many people that can get hold of it, the better.
I almost wish there was like an open source or a crowdsourced database of scams where people can submit things that are scams.
I know.
An app where it's like I can just take a screenshot and be like, is this a scam?
Well, that's in the books as well. I have a book planned for next year called Don't Click on Shit, because it resonates. There you go. You laughed. It resonates with people. You can't say to people, don't click on suspicious links or be aware of...
I know some very smart engineers who had to take phishing courses at the company because they keep clicking on the link.
That's right. And with that is an app. And that app in my design is for people to send screenshots and say, is this a scam? And then you create that library for people to look at.
Especially because you've educated them on how to spot them. So now when they come across them, they're like, this looks a little bit sketchy. I'm going to add it to the database here. And that could help, 10 other people down the road who get contacted by the same person.
Yep. And AI can help there. So AI can look at the scam itself, put it in
Mhm.
the registry. If it comes in again as a screenshot, it can still read the text and say, yes, this is a scam without
Mhm.
human intervention. That's where AI can be really helpful and useful. So in my future ideal world is for people to come across something and think, I'm not sure about this. Let's go find out what JJ has got to say. That's it. And I don't necessarily need to be the human to be contacted, but to be the
Right.
source of information.
And you could consolidate all of your knowledge and expertise. Like there could be a companion chatbot, for
Exactly.
example. Let's say something's not in the database already, still looks a little bit sketchy, but that AI chatbot can analyze it, compare it with kind of your checklist of best practices. Maybe it scored 60%, and you might want to proceed with caution. I feel
Exactly.
like that extra step will go a long way
Mm.
to saving people from falling prey to something. Everybody use this before you click on any links or anything.
Exactly. The book is, I suppose there's 80% of the content there. I've just got to put it together. But I have to start with something that's going to work to get people in and then adding on to it from there.
I love that. It's been amazing talking to you, JJ, about all these things with cybersecurity, the human responsibility. I love that angle of it. And I'm super excited for you to build out your community and be able to educate 1 million people on how to stay safe online. For our listeners out there, what are 3 tips that they can begin practicing today in their daily lives to keep themselves and their family safe?
Only 3. I can do that. All right. The first one, and I get a lot of questions about this, is get a password manager. If you've got more than 5 or 10 passwords you need to remember, because you should never reuse a password, you need a password manager. And people think, oh, that's silly. Well, I challenge everybody to really think about the passwords you have. I have over 400 that I need to remember. It ain't happening. The average person has between 70 and 80 passwords to remember. Get yourself a password manager. For kids, get them a book. For seniors, 65 and over, get them a book. It's absolutely fine. But if you've got a lot of things you need to remember, a password manager, what it does is manages your password. You need to remember one really good passphrase or password to get in, and it looks after it for you. The second thing is two-factor authentication, which is another layer of authentication. Once you've used your username and password to log in, it's a code that's generated best practice through an app. And for more information, of course, anybody can reach out after. Two-factor authentication means you need your mobile phone to assist in the login process. Cyber criminals could absolutely find your username and password in a data breach and they're in. But if you've set up that next layer, 2FA, it's called two-factor authentication. Unless they've got your mobile phone, they can't get in. So it's an added layer of protection, like a deadbolt on your door or an alarm at home. The third thing is to really think about your data privacy and go do an audit over the holiday season. I do it at least 4 times a year, if not more. That's just me. I'm in that world. Have a look at all the privacy settings on all your social media apps and make sure everything is locked down so that the only people who can see it are your friends. Public things are just not worth the risk these days. So that's the third thing. There are others, but if you do those top 3, you're well on your way to that basic cyber hygiene.
Okay, awesome. Thanks so much for joining my podcast, JJ.
Thank you for inviting me, Sabrina.